This episode of the Maintenance Mindset Minute is brought to you by AppWork. AppWork gives us the ability to look back at work orders and things that we did in the past and be able to make decisions going forward. Now, that one statement is a very important statement, especially because it applies directly to today's quick thought for a maintenance mindset. And that thought is based on a book. The book is called Stolen Focus, and it's by the author Johan Hari. And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, please forgive me, Mr. Hari. The book is about how challenging it is today to maintain our focus on one task at a time. And it discusses the challenge of attention span. But the point I bring up and the quick thought today, he's got a chapter in there that I've been pondering a lot lately. In it, he talks about the value of reading fiction in a business world. Now, you may have gathered by now, I like to read. I like to read. The most common book you'll find in my hand is fiction. I like thrillers and science fiction and mysteries and whodunits and all of the various exciting and adventure type books. Those are what I tend to gravitate to. A few years ago, I was challenged by a good friend of mine, Tara Samuels. She leads the Multifamily Mentor Group. And she actually set a goal for herself to read a certain number of books, and we had a conversation, and I picked up that goal to where my goal every month is to read one fiction book. Generally, I beat that and read 2 or 3 a month, and one nonfiction book. And I'm selective, so that way I make sure I keep that. Well, I read Stolen Focus last year sometime, and what really stuck with me is he had some space given into the book to the value of reading fiction books for business and for life. But it wasn't so much for the philosophical application of whatever the author wants to say in those nonfiction books. Actually, he couched it, or he made me think of it in terms of a simulation. You know, right now, one of the main ways or one of the big sellers for e-learning is the ability to simulate a work order in an apartment. There are programs out there, there are companies out there that will give you a 3D simulation of an air conditioning system that a maintenance technician needs to take their tools in order to fix, and you play it like a game. It's 3D, it's simulated. But what Mr. Hari actually pointed out is that in fiction books, you, the reader, are taking part in simulations of conversations, of personal interactions. And what these simulations and personal interactions do are, in a safe way, I, the reader, can see what happens, a possible outcome of a situation, and your protagonist or antagonist gets mad, gets funny, gets serious, diverts, ignores, and you get to live in the emotional response of the people in the story. And there is no physical danger to you other than maybe thinking through what the character did in the story in that situation and make it personal. What would I have done? Now, granted, I just finished a book on where these special operators were solving a potential military nuclear threat. And it was an amazing swashbuckling tale that somehow and miraculously these guys were always in the exact right place at the exact right time. It was a fun story. It was great. I'm very glad it was fictional because it was scary if they would have failed. And of course, that's what good books set up. But there were multiple conversations that were had, especially where decisions were being made, that one person was trying to persuade another person in the right course of action. And there were a lot of different strategies that this conversation took. The cool thing is the world was not in a nuclear threat in that book. My world, there were no bullets flying. There were no knife fights for me. But I got to simulate those conversations. And I got to think through, how would I handle it? And I got to admit, I wouldn't have handled it very well because, I don't possess the ability to be in the exact right place at the exact right time. But being able to live those simulations has, I'm convinced, helped me have a better conversation, think through different options, and possibly most importantly, see somebody else's point of view. Thank you for joining me in this episode of the Maintenance Mindset Minute. It's been brought to you by AppWork. Head over to www.appworkco.com and check out what they have going on. Thanks again, and I'll see you somewhere.